Alright everyone, I have something to tell you. I may have drafted the weirdest Pokemon team ever. I am in Season 15 of BFR. This season of the BFR, we have done a free draft. That's right guys, BFR is literally free. And that may have resulted in me making a number of decisions. As a result, I have brought together the various figures of authority, the leaders and the people who make decisions, the movers and shakers, into one space so that we can collaborate and work together in figuring out how to go forward with the weirdest Pokemon team ever. So yeah, VGC format, national decks, with most mythicals and some restricteds legal. You may ask, Mancini, the Amazing, the channel on which you're currently watching, are we going to be seeing on the Mancini the Amazing channel you piling another restricted, like in your just finished Mono Dragon run, where Zygarde was a very significant portion of especially the back half of that season? Not as much in the front portion, but certainly in the back half of the season and in playoffs. No. What you will be seeing is me being a filthy mythical spammer. As well as some other legendaries, you know. And you will be seeing me drafting not just one, but two, and there might have been a third, but I think just two Pokemon that I've never drafted before in this free draft. So the way that they did to try and have grounding for this free draft to sort it out, we'll go on to the first pick, the Don. They had a choose your starter, where every coach was assigned 3 random Pokemon from what is the equivalent of, I believe it was 8 points, and then like they, in randomizing it, they made sure that you didn't have like overlapping types or anything. So I had to look at Goodra, had to look at Espeon, and I had the option of Hippowdon. I looked at Goodra, I'm like, Goodra's cool. There are many things you can do with Goodra. It is 600 base stat total. It's pretty good. And then I remembered, I'm already using the other Goodra in VPL. It's really good, but do I really want to be using every Goodra at the same time? I don't think so. I looked at Espeon, and I remembered, this Pokemon is 110 speed. It's 130 special attack, and every other stat it has is trash. I really was trying to justify using Espeon. You know, it got Alluring Voice, which is a big buff because it allows it to punish dark types even better than it used to be able to. But I just, like, Espeon? Are we really going to pretend like the thing that I should be using at this current point in my career, at this current point in my season, is Espeon? I don't think that we're going to be arguing. Like, the best thing that I could be doing right now is using Espeon in VGC draft. You know? So Hippowdon. Not a particularly great Pokemon, but one which is pretty nostalgic for me. Back in my first season of VBL, I had Hippowdon in the BDSP, that Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl draft. So here, Hippowdon, it's a Pokemon with a good Phys-Def stat, okay physical attack stat, decent HP, not amazing special defense, slow, but not super Trick Room slow speed, but it has the ability Sandstream, which enables it to set up sand. So I was thinking, okay, what is a cool way that I can take advantage of sand outside of just like getting a Pokemon that has Sand Rush to get faster in sand? And then also something that in general can maybe fit around a game plan which orients around Hippowdon's like sort of speed, being a tanky Pokemon. Who can be like genuinely bulky with like slack of recovery, but I think generally in VGC sort of benefits more from being able to maybe like yawn high horsepower stuff, or even like Curse Body Press, rather than necessarily having a set where you can always fit slack off. So the first thing that I did was I decided, okay, I'm going to take advantage of sand. We're introducing the boss, the Auntie, Princess Di herself. Princess Di is a very fun Pokemon. It has the ability, it is a rock type, which means in sand, as set up by Hippowdon, it doesn't take the damage end of turn that most Pokemon do, and it also gets a boosted 1.5x to its special defense, which stacks multiplicatively with stat boost, which is really nice, as well as multiplicatively with an Assault Vest, which is really nice. That means that the Auntie in this free draft is really difficult for opponents to take out. You know, like I checked, and you know, if I do have the sand up, there are flash cannons it can shrug off. You know, there are a lot of water types that will struggle to be able to push through it initially, and it's got really consistent damage output. Not crazy damage output, but really consistent damage output. It has a strong physical move in Diamond Storm, which allows it to affect both opposing Pokemon. It has the ability to get +2 defense off of that, which is really strong. But on top of that, it also has a pretty solid special move pool. The physical defense synergizes well with body press, and it's got quite good defensive stats. I think it's like 100 in both its offensive stats and 150 in both its defensive stats, but it's 50 HP and 50 speed, which, both of those are more limiting factors, but, it is what it is. But, Princess Diamonds aren't cheap. And yeah, on the special side, you can just run Power Gem, Earth Power, Mystical Fire, which are like really solid sort of synergistic pieces, but it does also have access to a strong Meteor Beam, which is really nice to enable you to scale up to click Moonblast or Dazzling Gleam, or even just Power Gem after. So it can take advantage of its defensive self, and it is able to reduce its passivity through boosting off of rock moves specifically, which is really cool, because rock moves are very feast or famine, and everyone knows that the main thing you want out of something that's already inconsistent is the more riding on that inconsistency. So that's why I went here with the boss. Now, the next pickup for... Actually, I don't know if I specified a team name for this league. It's probably still Shelgon Bait. But it might be Bacon and Eggs, might be Breath Mints. But yeah, either way, the next player on the team is the Jarl. POW themselves. I saw they were still on the board, and I knew that round 2, this had to be... I went all in on getting this round 2 acquisition. The Jarl here is a really strong option. So this is a Pokemon, Dark and Ice type, very fast, with access to fighting coverage, which means it's very difficult for opposing teams to be able to take moves from my Pokemon, especially now that Steel doesn't resist Dark anymore. May or may not be assisting someone who's playing Gen 5 League right now. But I also just have, like, one of the issues with the Diancie is the Diamond Storm isn't like a crazy strong move, right? It is, only so strong, only 100 attack. It technically has a boosting ability in Clear Body, because it means that you can't get intimidated, and that, obviously does help. But in terms of making sure that it's doing enough damage, reducing the amount of which that damage is... mitigating the amount that damage is reduced by being a spread move, by getting Sword of Ruin there, means that you can really be doing serious damage, even to 2x targets with Diamond Storm. With Terra Rock Diamond Storm, especially if you've got like a, like a Stone Plate or, Terra Rock, you can really be doing super consistent damage by facilitating that with Sword of Ruin, right? And then one of the other things with Sword of Ruin, one of the great ways to sort of slow down an opposing Gen-Pow, especially if it's like a Banded or Life Orb Gen-Pow, if it isn't the Scarf one, is by running opposing Focus Sash, right? And if I'm running a Life Orb Gen-Pow, I can hit the Protect, I can see their I can see their Sash break as a result of Sandstream from Hippo. I can get boosted damage from Hippo, I can click an Earthquake if I'm protecting with Gen-Pow, right? And then I can just get a KO with my own, with the POW the following turn. It means that I can make both Hippo and Diancie, who are both like good but tankier Pokemon, I can really amp up the degree to which they are able to put out offensive damage, whether it like even just be by having, well, one of the problems is I'm like a bit annoyed by Bullet Punch at this point, but like, if I have a Pokemon next to Hippo, right, then I can switch that Pokemon out, and then Hippo, who may have been like more supportive and maybe more worried about Yawn, is able to throw off like a really strong high horsepower as a result of power coming in and giving you that extra boost, right? It's just a really strong ability on a more for a more defensive team to have. That said, looking at this right now, the things that I'm supporting with this team maybe could do with more resists to the types that Gen-Pow is weak to, being predominantly, like, I'm okay into Rock, but I don't have a Fighting resist. I've got a Fairy that doesn't resist Fighting. I don't have a Steel resist, and I also have a 4-Hex Steel weakness. And then Fairy is, I don't have a Fairy resist at this point. Diancie can take less damage and doesn't have to worry about, like, a Moonblast special attack drop or a Play Rough attack drop. But, still not necessarily pushing the damage that we're looking for at this point. But yeah, there's the Jarl, there's Thorkel. So apparently Thorkel, the real person Thorkel, may have been a Jarl, but the documentation we have on like Norse figures in the North Sea area at this point heading into the time of Canute. It's pretty scant. A lot of it isn't necessarily from the North sources, so you don't necessarily know how reliable the estimations of English or Scottish authors are on, you know, what they think the positions of various Danish figures are. I don't know why I started scrolling that, but yeah. So I'm just gonna go with the Jarl, it mixed with the 6 sword. I may have actually tried recording this video earlier and then realized I had like not had half of the video in the video with how my like screen was set up, because it was set up for the individual like playing the game. Even now it's still cutting off part of the screen, but you know, I'm just accepting that that is what it is. I don't really know how to fix it. But yeah, the twin axes matched with the tin blades, but I realized that one of the blades on Qianpao is the sword hilt. I hadn't not noticed it was the hilt until this video. But yeah, so now the next Pokemon I drafted before, and the first one of the Pokemon who I'd never drafted before, the Shogun, Ogerpon-Hearthflame, everyone's favorite pop girly. I'm very excited. I actually don't. I'm not super familiar with the show, The Shogun. I had like seen people use clips of it, like with dubbed audio, for like memes. I assume that's Tokugawa. like Tokugawa Ieyasu. Obviously, there's a bunch of Tokugawas, but I could be wrong. I don't know. Like, I would just presume it's Tokugawa, but it could be like you know. Hidetaka, whatever the guy is, the guy before Ieyasu, who quite infamously looked like a monkey. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But yeah, the Shogun, Ogerpon-Hearthflame. Ogerpon-Hearthflame is a really fun Pokemon because it has Follow Me, but also it has a held item called Hearthflame. I think it's called the Hearthflame Mask. I think that's where we get the Hearthflame from. And that held item means that its signature move, Ivy Cudgel, is always fire type. Oh, and also, by the way, it does 1.2x damage. That is a multiplicative, so that, you know, rather than like, you know, when you sword stance you get to +2, which is 1.5, but instead of being plus 1.5, it's plus 1.5 instead of by 1.5. This will stack multiplicatively with stat boosts, with stab, with the Qianpao Sword of Ruin boost, you know. And then the craziest thing is, Ogerpon-Hearthflame, when it terras into fire type. It's the only type it can terra into. But it also gets an attack boost of 1.5x. So that means that this Pokemon has the stab boost on Ivy Cudgel, right? Which is already a strong move, which is non-contact, which is just upside, right? And until they make something which punishes moves for not being contact. I may or may not have seen some fan-made games where they have abilities that punish things for not being contact. Looking at you, Mega Melodic. But 1.5, right, from the 1.5x boost from being stabbed, multiplied by the 1.5 from the attack boost, assuming I'm not intimidated, right? But even if I've been intimidated one stage, then you also still get 1.5 boost? Yeah, then you still get a 1.5 boost up to neutral. So 2.25x from that, right? I don't actually know the maths off the top of my head, so I don't know why I'm counting that out. But another 1.2x and another 1.25x multiplier on top of that means that I think you're looking at about 3 and a bit x, which is very strong for a strong move from a strong typing. So I'm very excited for this, but it also has the opportunity to do Follow Me, Spiky Shield, Synthesis, and you can run like a more defensive sort of build and support your team around you, which is really cool. And also, if I am annoyed by opposing Pokemon with Sturdy, this is Mold Breaker before it terras and gets the attack boost, so I don't need to be worried about Sturdy. So, you know, very, very excited to use Ogerpon-Hearthflame. I've used all the other Ogerpons, and I just had not had the opportunity to use this one. Mostly because it wasn't normally, like, enabled in... It wasn't allowed to terra in most singles that I've been in, or it's been, like, Uvas, and I'm like, okay, I'll just use Wellspring, because it's better. But yeah, very, very excited for the Shogun. So, here we have the Sultan. And then you've got a little bit of that Python Hummies. With the show, The show is definitely, like, it's just, at one point the anti-Semitism in it got too much to keep watching, but man, the actors in that show, really charismatic, the tension in that show, very enjoyable to watch, and I just, he is so well cast in that role. Like, the casting is absolutely immaculate in that film. It's just some of the things that, some of his lines in Turkish, because the show is in Turkish, are just burned into my head for all time. The actual guy, Abdul Hamid, pretty awful person, right? And much less competent than he seems in the movie. In the show. They certainly play up, I think, both his, they make him seem like he's more like genuine religious and genuine political figure than he was historically. But I don't know why I've been thrilled by this, but we have the Sultan themselves, indeed. This is not the redirection one. That one was banned. No, that's not true. That's another draft of in where that one's banned. But something I thought would be interesting is, hey, my team's kind of weak to Bullet Punch right now, right? And, Excel the Rock and just a lot of different things. What if I had the ability to turn off my opponent's priority moves into my Pokemon by just having a Pokemon go out? And also, what if I had the ability for Diancie, who, can already get very good special defense boost from Sand, to become even more specially defensive? Perhaps by running a Psychic Seed and getting a 1.5 Expedef boost. And then it can also have the Sand boost, which then makes that a 2.25 Expedef boost. That seems pretty cool. And this also gives me access to another spread move, right? I'm sort of constantly putting pressure onto my opponent to prepare for spread moves, run Wide Guard Pokemon, even though their Wide Guard Pokemon may not necessarily be the best for that matchup, and then I can punish them bringing, like, a Throh. Probably not Throh, I don't think anyone drafted Throh, but, like, their starter, by just clicking a single target move with Chien Pao. So I think that gives me, like, sort of a depth and flexibility, which I'm really looking for here. It gives me, like, just more stuff that I can do, right? And I think the main thing that my team is looking for to be able to put in consistent pressure is just to have more stuff to do. More stuff that my opponents have to worry about. Having that Psy Spam option. Oh, that's right. No, I did draw 3 new Pokemon. That's right. I'm so lost. But yeah, Psy Spam is cool. I just like Indeedee as well. It's got Fake Out, which is cool. I have Fake Out. I can just not run Psychic Terrain. Or I can Fake Out a Flying type. Both of these are options. So it's just a cool option, right? Teams which are very prepared for the the physical offense, may struggle into the additional special offense, right? And that's sort of the dream. But yeah, just also being able to protect Chien Pao and Ogerpon from priority is nice. So, into the next one, we have the Princess. Originally, I not nicknamed the Princess. When I decided I was going to, like, put figures to represent the different positions of authority in the video, I don't even remember what Crown used to be. But it was something where I couldn't, like, find an easy or interesting example of, and I'm like, wait, could be Azula though. I think I may have been inspired by some fan art I saw of Azula as well, just floating around here from a mutual. And I'm like, you know what? I think Iron Crown gets to be the Princess. That gets to be Azumarill. I feel like Tachyon Cutter is, basically an electric type move if we just ignore everything. Because, she's the classic lightning bender, and the Iron Crown is very lightning coded for a Pokemon who is not an electric type, and I don't think has, like, Thunderbolt or anything. But what Iron Crown does have is a Psychic type, as well as the move Expanding Force, which is the synergy spread move with Psychic Terrain, right? It becomes 120 base power in Psychic Terrain, and then also gets the Psychic Terrain boost of 1.3x, I think it is. No, 1.2x? I don't know. I know they nerfed it. I forget if it was from 1.5 to 1.3 or from 1.3 to 1.2. No, I feel like it was from 1.3 to 1.2. Surely it wasn't ever 1.5. But Coco was so broker. Sorry, I'm just completely... but yeah, so it's a Steel type, which is nice. It gives a resistance to several of the types that I said I was worried about. It gives, like, a really strong Fairy check. It has that Tachyon Cutter move there to continue to deal with the annoying Sand... Focus Ashes, it's another disincentive on Focus Ash paired with Hippowdon. the more I can disincentivize Focus Sash, the more I can enable Qianbao, the more I can enable Ogerpon-Hearthflame. So that's really cool. And it also just gives me the ability to have stored power, crazy offensive setup with like that Iron Defense Body Press stored power set, which is just like a really fun ladder option mostly. So really fun singles ladder option, and it would be cool to try and run that in VGC. I've got Follow Me Ogerpon to support it, and I could run a Psychic Seed on that sort of build as well. So I've got like all this sort of stuff that I can do with Iron Crown, which is just the second last Paradox Pokemon I had left to use after I finally got through Great Tusk and Slitherwing. So now I've only got Iron Thorns left. I don't know if I'm ever going to draft it, but surely at some point. I've been looking in quite some detail at what Pokemon I haven't done left, what types they represent, what monotype drafts I haven't done yet. I'm doing really well at sort of reducing these numbers, but not necessarily as well at reducing the number of monotypes I haven't done, not necessarily as well as like reducing the number of Pokemon I haven't done. There's still so many left, and a lot of them are really bad, and a lot of them are Ubers that 11 different Arceus forms, but yeah, the Princess Iron Crown. It'll be interesting to use it. I don't love it in singles, which is why I haven't picked it up yet. But it'll be interesting to see how it performs in a really high power VGC format. Now, onto the Tlatoani. I would say the Don and the Boss was sort of like the original names that shaped me wanting to do this. We're on Dracovish, right? Dracovish has that Strong Jaw Fisher's Rent, an incredibly powerful water type move. It just does so much damage, right? It has a really solid Water Dragon typing, only weak to Freeze Dry, Fairy, and Dragon. Very, very solid defensive typing here. Maybe who needs Fairy matchup? Like no one has ever actually needed to have a decent Fairy matchup. I don't think so. And I just think aesthetically, I did look to see about like the Civ 5 version versus the Civ 6 version, and the Civ 4 version. As much as I do love the Civ 4 version, I think the Civ 6 version, honestly, the Civ 5 one just looks kind of goofy in like the edgy sort of way, whereas I just love the Civ 6 version. It also just feels less disrespectful than the Civ 5 one, which feels a bit like, a bit rude, a bit impolite. But yeah, I just like the I guess it's really the random spiky aesthetic, which is what gets it to me, as well as sort of the pink on green. I think Dracovish will be good fun. It'll be interesting to use with Qianbao. It does have the option to run Sand Rush, which does really, remove a 1.5x multiplier from Strongjaw on its offensive moves. But if you need that to be faster than your opponent, because you do double damage if you move first, then 2x is more than 1.5x. So it's definitely something where Sand Rush does make sense in some matchups. Especially if you don't wind up feeling like you need the damage. And I just thought it would be interesting to use Dracovish. I have not used it in many years at this point, because it hasn't been in the game, and I haven't really been doing that much Natex draft. And even then, like, when am I drafting Dracovish in Natex draft? It's not that good in singles, it's not that good in VGC, but it's fun. I figure I may as well draft around here, but right? And yeah, with Qianbao, if I believe Qianbao learns Rain Dance, so I can click Rain Dance and then have like a Scarf, Vicious Wren, Terra Water, Strongjaw coming down, and I don't care if you have a Palkia. No one does, but like, I don't care if you have a 4x Water Resist. I don't care if you're a multi-scale Dragonite, That Vicious Wren is going to be doing crazy amounts of damage. So I'm very, very excited to get the opportunity to use Dracovish Tlatoani. And just in general, I like the whole sort of international measurements of power, So here we come onto the next figure, the Colonel. Just, perhaps somewhat slightly less serious of a figure. Mienshao. I didn't think Indeedee was good as my only fake-out Pokemon. I also didn't believe that my fighting weakness was real. I then realized that my Fairy type and both my Psychic types are neutral to fighting. But it's fine. So here, I just will get my own fighting type Pokemon with Blackjack and Ooties. Mienshao is, I would say, like a sort of quintessential support Pokemon. In this case, my team felt like it would really appreciate having coaching for a Pokemon like Diancie, or even like that Storm Power Iron Crown, like I mentioned, or having that support even maybe for Hippowdon. You know, just being able to provide that utility, being able to have that fake out, being able to have, you know, the potential power of a high jump kick combined with the Reckless boost and the Sword of Ruin to really, really nail my way through a particularly stubborn opposing Pokemon if need be. You know, something to disincentivize all of the potential steel types that could be coming against my against my you know, POW and Diancie. It's just a fun Pokemon, right? I don't think I've ever used Mienshao in VGC before, but it's good. It's got like 3 really good abilities, right? Inner Focus, incredible ability. Reckless in matchups where there is no Intimidate on the opposing team can be like a serious damage boost on High Jump Kick, like I said. And Regenerate is also like just another solid ability that can allow running like a bulkier Mienshao. It's not a super bulky Pokemon. It's not a super fast Pokemon either, that 105. But it's sort of in that position where, you know, maybe you can take a hit from an opposing faster Pokemon and get a U-turn off, and then, you know, the Pokemon in the back takes the next hit, and Mienshao has recovered off a bit of that first hit to be able to take another one. And this is the Colonel Sanders from the visual novel I Love You, Colonel Sanders, which I have not played, but I did force a streamer to play at one point amongst many other members of chat, and then we kept for a while back. You know, this is back when I had a job where I could watch streams while at work. So I and many of the chatters would consistently ask them to reprise their playing of I Love You, Colonel Sanders. So yeah, there's the Colonel. Then we have the Puppeteer, Rodhull themselves. This is the 3rd and final Pokemon that I had not drafted previously. This is a new mythical introduced this generation. It's got this really broken ability, Poison Puppeteer, which says that when opposing Pokemon are poisoned, they get confused as well. That's insane. Poison's already like fine in some circumstances. Putting confusion math on top of that, when like confusion is already like a pretty strong status condition because it can stack with poison or with other non-volatile status conditions like Wisp or Paralysis. Getting that just sort of built in seems just really crazy. It just seems like it puts a lot of RNG in my favor. It allows me to switch up to like a lot more defensive a game plan. I can combine, you know, potential confusion hitting yourself with poison from you know, from the poisoning from like a poison gas, or maybe from toxic spikes if I'm feeling it. I don't actually know whether this mon gets toxic spikes or manual toxic, if that makes sense. And then I can also pair that with Sand Chip, right? And then that will really serve to put dents in my opponent's sort of backline, you know, defensive Pokemon that are supposed to be able to clean up a Chien-Pao or a Mienshao or even a Diancie, right? And I've got a lot of pressure to put into opposing Pokemon. This is my Fighting Resist. It's immune to Fighting type moves, and if they have Scrappy so they can hit my Fighting type anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a Poison type, so it resists Fighting. Now my ground matchup is annoying, but I'm going to ignore that. So yes, and there's Rodhull, who I believe was a British comedian. I don't actually know anything much about it. I only found out about him from the video game Hearts of Iron 4, where he, I believe, still is, but I learned of him from being a like secret hidden leader you could get to be in charge of Australia sometimes. And that's Rodhull and his emu. Australians may look at that large blue bird and ask, why is the cassowary an emu? And I don't know. But seems to have been a fairly pleasant figure. I think passed on like in quite tragic circumstances, which I only found out while I was looking for the picture of him to put on the slideshow. But there's the real Puppeteer. Pecharunt and, of course, Rodhull. I was originally going to do Jim Henson. I just thought the Rodhull thing was funnier. And now we have the Khan. The Khan themselves. I could not get the appropriate like material culture, the version of the I can't even remember what the name of the helmet is, but the helmet is supposed to have like a feathery bit on top as well, and I could not get that to look not completely awful. when trying to background remove it, so I did unfortunately just background remove it altogether. I also don't know about this show, this particular portrayal of Temujin Shingo-san, also known in English as Genghis Khan. Don't know about that show. Haven't seen it. I hope it's good, because I frankly love the work that they put into the material culture. I feel like we've seen like some really lazy portrayals of Genghis Khan. The John Wayne movie is just possibly the worst movie ever made, tied with every other John Wayne movie. But that one in particular, where John Wayne, a like white American man, is playing Genghis Khan, it's pretty bad. And Mega Pidgeot. A friend of mine was commenting how Mega Pidgeot really does just have that butch lesbian haircut down just completely, and that's so true, bestie. Like, I was saying to her that she could probably pull the Mega Pidgeot off, maybe without the rat's tail, but you know, she wasn't necessarily as keen on that. The Mega Pidgeot is a fast flying type, a fast-ish. It's 121 speed after a Mega Evolves. It has access to Tailwind, which is cool for, you know, basically every Pokemon I have, including Genpal, frankly. You know, because a lot of other teams, due to the nature of there not being a price limit, will have access to Prankster Tailwind. So having a way to equalize that is less good on a Pokemon that can't run a Focus Sash, but it's still good in general, right? It just means I may have to invest in quite bulky, and it has the ability No Guard, which means that it can't miss Hurricane, even if they have Mold Breaker. I think to memory, back in Gen 7 singles, I once played someone who switched a Mold Breaker Pokemon in. I think it might have been, they might have run like Mold Breaker on a Hawlucha, because they thought it might turn off No Guard, and they needed to dodge Hurricane. Suffice it to say, I did have to book transport and accommodation to attend that poor Hawlucha's funeral, and I did give my condolences to its dearly departed husband. Sorry, to its not... obviously, the husband's not the... Look, I give up. I give up on saying words. Mega Pidgeot's fun. It's not a particularly deep or interesting Pokemon, and there's no particular reason that I did it outside of the fact that Mega Pidgeot is cool, and I have not used Mega Pidgeot in many years. Do not look at any other moves it might learn. So now, here we come to, I believe, the final pick. Yep, the final pick. The last one of the round, and I was like, I just drafted a flying type, but this flying type does not resist. I'm like weak to fire at this point, I'm weak to ground, I'm weak to fighting, I'm weak to just so much stuff, and I'm like, okay, there's only one Pokemon that can save me. If nobody got me, I know Helen Mirror. I mean, I know that's a bad. I feel like that joke might be in poor taste. You know, I look, sometimes, you know, you just need Gyarados. I don't even remember where the Helen Mirren Maelstream joke came from. I think, I saw someone, but I genuinely don't remember who. It was probably, like, watching a stream clips. I know, the aforementioned, lesbian friend has been putting me on to watching Northern Lion clips, so it's possible it was Northern Lion, but I don't think it was. But, you know, obviously, Meryl Streep, right? Del West Prado. I think there was probably a point which I remember the name of the character from the movie, but just the perfect energy to match Gyarados, I think. You know, for those of you who don't know the Pokemon lore, Magikarp is a fish that can jump really, really high by bouncing, including being able to jump over a mountain, and believes that it should be able to ascend to become a dragon. But dragons are have like this you know, coding in the way that they communicate, especially in early generations, where they represent some form of spiritual power. And due to the rage and frustration that Gyarados possesses, it was cast out from being able to become a dragon, was denied the ability to become a dragon, and as a result is just a water flying type, so it can fly, but it's not allowed to be a dragon. And that makes it so angry that the Mega Evolution of Gyarados stops being flying type and just becomes evil, the dark type, which in Japanese is literally just evil. So he's so big mad about not being a dragon that Lance does not care. Lance does not care. And, you know, I just feel like that fits Del Wars Prado, you know? I feel like that really speaks to, I don't know why I just described Gyarados as a he when I was suggesting that it relates to the experience of being under the glass ceiling. Probably because I didn't necessarily think that through, and you know, gendering is sort of a broad problem. But either way, Gyarados is the CEO. I literally, I had a build for my first week, and this video will be coming out not in schedule with when the weeks are happening, because you know they're just going to start coming out after my VBL season of playoffs finishes. But like, I literally did set Gyarados to be female because, you know, it is Metal Street, you know. But you know, I'm completely broken. But Gyarados is cool. It gives me Intimidate, which can reduce the attack of opposing Pokemon, which is nice because Sword of Ruin also boosts, well, I say boost the attack. It gives a multiplier in damage to the physical attacks of opposing Pokemon as well. So being able to reduce them through Intimidate is cool. Having another ground immunity is cool. And honestly, I just like Gyarados, you know? I just think Gyarados is cool. I just want to use Gyarados, and I would appreciate it if people would stop judging me for it. Thank you guys all for watching. This really is the weirdest Pokemon team ever. Like, I'm concerned that it's not going to be good. But also, my opponents have to worry about Gyarados, right? Like, it's just, you know, like, Hippo is like the Pokemon they least have to worry about. But if then they don't worry about Sand, it can invalidate so many, so many pieces of traditional counterplay to many of my Pokemon. So, thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll see how this season goes. This was a much less brief one than the than the Tim Cullen one I tried to do. Goodbye.